If we could just quieten down, we're gonna start, please. So, one of the things I said or challenged in a Basque a year or so ago was if we were going to have a forum in Spain, we needed somehow to include Latin America. And I really want to thank and congratulate them and indeed the efforts of Green Momentum to make that happen, both in terms of their presence here, but even by video as well. As you'll probably have gathered, we're certainly strong believers in the importance of global, and that very much includes Latin America. I think it's fair to say that many of us, and I'm certainly talking about myself, don't know enough about what is happening in Latin America on the Cleantech side, and I hope this afternoon is going to start to address that. So, with no further ado, those are my thanks. Luis and James, the show's yours from here. I think you want us to start with a video, and then you will pick up the conversation.
Countries on every corner of this earth now recognize that energy supplies are growing scarcer. Energy demands are growing larger, and rising energy use imperils the planet we will leave to future generations.
That, but you know, we do what we can here. Welcome to this second session of the Latin American afternoon. It is a pleasure for me to be here and to share in this moment the stage with James Bowen from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. We're here to talk to you about Latin America. If we do our job correctly, you're gonna come out of here, take a plane, go to Latin America and invest in one of my companies, a random company in Cleantech in Latin America. So James, thanks so much for being here and helping me talk about this. And I think the first question everybody has in mind is, what the hell are you doing here if you are from Massachusetts talking about Latin America? So why don't we, start with that?
Try to get that out of the way, right? Well, in Massachusetts, we've taken a real hard look at Latin America, and our Governor Deval Patrick in particular, has said that Massachusetts is going to increase their footprint in Latin America. So we've taken a number of trips. The governor's met 3 Latin American presidents in the past 12 months. We've taken trips to Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, Panama, Chile. And what we're seeing is a huge opportunity for Massachusetts companies. We have 5,000 clean energy and energy efficiency and water companies working in that sector in Massachusetts. And they need markets. Massachusetts is small. We can go to other states. We can go to Europe. But really emerging markets are where a lot of the excitement's at. So we've been spending a lot of time there. And we've also been, we're a leader. We're the #1 state for energy efficiency policy. We're a leader in renewable energy generation policies. And a lot of that we got from Europe. We learned a lot from what you guys are doing in Europe. You guys are leaders in many respects, and the US learns from you. Well, we've applied what we learned in our home, and now we're sort of transferring that knowledge to Latin America. So I'm kind of here as the waypoint between Europe and Latin America. We're physically closer to Latin America. We have natural market connections. So we're there in earnest right now. And I think Europe, Spain we see a lot in Latin America, but not the rest of Europe as much. So I'm here to talk a little bit about Massachusetts' experiences in Europe and try to be helpful in that respect. So there's actually 4 quick lessons I can give you from what Massachusetts has seen in Latin America that I think are very applicable to European companies. The first one is, when Europe and the US look at a new clean energy market, first questions we asked: what are the subsidies? Is there a renewable portfolio standard? Where is the government involvement? Well, in Latin America, there's really not subsidies. Chile has an RPS, a renewable portfolio standard. There are some good regulations in different countries, but you're not going to go in with that same expectation of getting a large subsidy that's going to reduce the final cost to the end user of the renewable energy product. So you have to get rid of that off the bat. But honestly, the opportunity here is that these markets are going to grow without subsidies because the natural resources are strong enough that it improves the efficiency of whatever you're installing there. Additionally, which we'll talk a little bit about later, the high energy prices are very attractive. The second thing is local partners. Everybody knows that you need a local partner whenever you go into any new market in the world. In Latin America, this is even more important. The family connections, the school that you went, the high school that you went to is really important as to whether you can do business with somebody there. In Massachusetts, that's just not a factor. And in Latin America, it's a huge factor. So pay attention to that when you're there. Make sure you're hiring the right people on the ground and the right local partners to work with. The third thing, so there's not a whole lot of opportunity in the residential markets for renewable energy or energy efficiency at scale right now. I think there's some selected opportunities, like maybe rich people's homes in Mexico or because of certain situations. But the exciting thing about Latin America is everybody's seen the charts that track the energy demand with growing middle class. And that's what's happening right now in Latin America, is the middle class is growing significantly. So for those of you who are doing residential plays, Latin America, getting there now, paying attention now, is going to be really a payoff in the long run because you'll be some of the first actors in the marketplace. And then the fourth area, the 2 big things I tell people if they're just looking for I think the major opportunities right now, financing, and workforce development. And these are things that the US, Massachusetts, and Europe really get well. Financing, they need more project financing, creative project financing in Latin America. They also need more innovation in their renewable energy financing policies at the government level. So a lot of you guys work in those areas, you're experts, you can offer a lot to Latin America and you can be seen as a big value add to them. The other area in workforce development, installation of renewable energy projects, installation and servicing on the energy efficiency side. There's not a fully trained technical workforce like the community college system that we have in the US. I'm sure you have a similar, I know Germany has a big system like that. They don't quite have that in Latin America, so if you can bring some training and from your experience in Europe there, you're gonna be getting better products installed, and you'll develop a lot of loyalty with your customer base.
Well, thank you. This is the first time I hear somebody so excited about high energy prices. But it is true. One of the attractive things about Latin America is that we have very high energy prices. Yesterday, we were talking about distributed generation here in the same room, and one of the things that Tomás pointed out from Son Edison was that the distributed generation in Latin America is a particularly interesting opportunity. Right now, it's not so much the government, but the different international companies that are coming to Latin America, establishing their headquarters there to produce products for the entire region, for the US, and sometimes for Asia and Europe. They want to start producing their own energy, basically because energy is too expensive. They come up with an agreement with the Mexican government, which, in the case of Mexico, control the energy generation and distribution, and they start producing their own energy. But one of the things that they have in Mexico, and not only Mexico, but other countries in Latin America, is net metering, for example. Net metering, and also the fact that the law allows for self-consumption contracts. That puts, pretty much prepares the table for anybody who wants to come in and start working on distributed generation. But this is only Mexico. I mean, here we want to talk about the entire region in Latin America. And one of the key things that happened, I don't know if you heard, there was this small financial crisis in 2008. After that happened, and most of the world, were wondering what's next for us, what's going to happen. In Latin America, people got to work. People started thinking, what's next for us? How can we attract investors? How can we attract the attention of developed countries so we can grow our industries, particularly the energy industry, the Cleantech industry, software, health, biotech, etc. Countries like Chile, for example, they created for the first time the Ministry of Energy about 3 to 4 years ago. Then they created the Center for Renewable Energy. In Brazil, we have the privatization of the largest oil company in Latin America, and now partially private. This company is diversifying the energy portfolio, and they are investing not only in biofuels, but also renewable energy. And in the case of Colombia, Colombia went through a huge social transformation, and right now it is a country ready for prime time. It is a country that is ready to invest in innovation, ready to attract entrepreneurs, ready to attract investors. And the reason Jim and I are talking here is because we met during one of those meetings where governments were trying to figure out how can the US invest money in Colombia, in Chile, in Mexico, in Argentina, specifically in the energy sector. So what was most attractive for you guys when you were in Chile, for example?
Yeah, Chile is a great example. Definitely, Chile is probably one of the top opportunities in the world for solar thermal, for large-scale solar thermal CSP, which I know Spain is an expert in. So that's an exciting opportunity. We have some research out of MIT that is relevant in that area, so that was interesting. We actually our governor signed an agreement with the president of Chile to work cooperatively. And I think one thing that is different, Chile's really into smart grid and energy efficiency. They want to be a leader there. They have a pretty congested grid in Santiago in the center of the country, and they have super high energy prices. Don't quote me, I think it's 17 cents per kilowatt hour in Santiago is the base rate, and for other more advanced users it goes higher. So there's a lot of incentive there for energy efficiency. Also working with the Center for Renewable Energy, and also there's an Energy Efficiency Association. Those are great partners there when you go. And the final thing is Chile has a lot of money from the mining royalties, and they're investing in projects. Google Corfo, C-O-R-F-O. You'll find always significant funding in the many millions of dollars and euros, opportunities available to do projects in Chile, probably more than any other country in Latin America. So that's an exciting market.
It definitely is. I think, talking about that part of the continent, when you go south, I mean, you have Argentina, which right now is going through some crazy changes, some would say. Talk about doing. Anyway, and Chile, we just saw what's happening at the government level. And in Brazil, I mean, it's not only the privatization of Petrobras that made the change, it's also the political will. It is a country that has vast natural resources. It's a country that has a lot of oil. Still, it's a country that is investing in other areas. Right now, they depend a lot on hydroelectric. I don't know how you see that market in terms of like from the perspective of clean technology.
Yeah, well, you know, I think that's the case of Brazil and Colombia and definitely a few other countries. What I've been seeing when we go down there and what we're hearing from the government officials in these high-level meetings is that they know that the future is not hydro for them. Not only is climate change becoming a real problem in terms of the reliability of what they're getting from the hydroelectric, and reliability is important because that's going towards their base loads, so that it has to be reliable. So they're not relying on that, and also the environmental impacts. You know, Latin American population, as they become middle class, as they become more educated, they're realizing that the environmental impacts are not desirable. So they're moving away from it. There's still projects that will be important. Actually, mini hydros, I think, in the less invasive hydro projects are going to be big in Brazil and those type of countries. The one other thing in Brazil outside of that that's really interesting is the transportation opportunities. There's cars, there's commercial fleets like taxi fleets that actually have three tanks for fuel tanks in the cars for ethanol, natural gas, and regular gasoline. And every car is flex fuel. They at least have 2 tanks, if not 3. So that means you got a very educated consumer here on fuels and energy. Like the woman from O-Power in the beginning of these sessions was talking about the time that people spend thinking about electricity. In Brazil, they're thinking a lot about energy, at least, and so that there's opportunities that will fall out of that.
For many years, I mean, I'm sure none of you will let me lie about this. It's, I mean, for many years we have heard that Latin America is the next frontier. Latin America, Southeast Asia, Africa, that's where the money is going to go, that's where the technology is going to be developed, that's where everything is going to happen, but it never happens. There is always social unrest, there is always a political genius somewhere changing a regime, or there's something happening in Latin America. But trust me, I know what I'm talking about. This is prime time for Latin America. Right now we have Mexico, we have a new government in Mexico, and this guy is crazy. Some say he's very handsome, but he's also very smart. He's actually making very important changes. In 6 months, he has made changes that the previous administration tried to do for 6 years. And right now, there's a new climate change law, there's a new energy efficiency law, there is a new energy use law in Mexico, which is pushing companies to use energy more efficiently to produce energy from also renewable energy sources. So there is a change, and most of the infrastructure that is being prepared in Latin America comes from the legal side. So it's the government finally getting their act together and helping companies like most of the companies here represented to come to Mexico, to come to Brazil, to come to Chile, Central America, and many other countries to start something new. And if you want to look at this, I mean, don't believe me, but you can believe the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum publishes every year an index of competitiveness. Latin American countries tend to be, like 60 to 80 places back to, from the first place. But if you look at the numbers for the last 5 years, you have Mexico, Chile, Brazil, and Colombia moving up in the scale. Right now, Mexico is 40, for example, and it continues to move up. And if we believe, for example, PricewaterhouseCoopers that says that in 2050, Mexico, Brazil, and Chile are going to be one of the top 7 economies in the world, then this is the time to invest. This is the time to get on board. I don't know what you think from the U.S. standpoint.
Yeah, well, I got to ask you before. I mean, I saw on the video, and we talked about this a little earlier, the 2011 numbers looked really low, and I asked Luis about that, and he has a good perspective on that, but I think it's actually could be a market opportunity for the people in Europe.
Yeah, well, this is true. I don't know if you noticed that. We showed numbers very quickly in the video, so you wouldn't notice that, but Jim is very annoying, and so he asked the right question, and it is true. We see the numbers, the investment numbers. We see how they start growing. We see like 2007, it's like, oh, this is awesome. 2008, the crisis comes and everything goes to hell. But then again, investment starts going up. But a lot of this comes because of the economic rescue packages that came. A lot of it went to invest in clean technology. Mexico is the only country the only emerging economy that invested 10% of the rescue package in energy efficiency. And after that, Colombia did something similar, Brazil did something similar. But in 2011, we start seeing the end of that. So the money we saw in 2012, and I believe Daniel from Base, he's here, probably you know the numbers. I believe for 2012, we're talking about 260 billion worldwide, out of which 10% went to Latin America, right? So 10% of that went to Latin America. Let's say $30 billion to invest in Cleantech went to Latin America. But this is real money. This is no longer rescue package money. This is not government money. This is people like you and me trying to put the money where the money should be, which is Latin America at this point. We have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to take a question and then final thoughts. Or
yeah, well, we could take some questions. I'll give one quick thing because we did skip over Colombia in Mexico. The Mexico has some awesome policies. The self-supply policy that Luis mentioned earlier is a lot of Massachusetts companies are taking advantage of that. It means like large industries like Coca-Cola or Walmart can self-supply energy to them, and the utility is required to wheel the electricity no matter where it's produced. And in Colombia, and this is applicable to some other countries, oil and gas and extractive industries. There's huge opportunities here in Chilean mines, all around these industries. They're increasingly difficult the regulations are starting to enforce them on wastewater and the sort of environmental impacts of these extractive industries. So the companies are having to spend a lot of money to try to maybe truck the water a distance or deal with the compliance. They're not adopting as many new technologies that would actually be more efficient and save the money as they should. European companies can provide some of those technologies to them. So the extractive industries, there's big renewable energy opportunities. And also one last thing in Colombia, and this is probably another case, in the rural areas, they're growing a lot of, developing really fast. So there's a lot of distributed generation opportunities. But yes, we should take some questions. So what is everybody thinking about in the audience? What are your burning topics that you guys wanted to know about?
Burning topics, you can see their faces, right? Like
the second to last session of the day of the conference.
Any questions, really? If you don't have any questions, I'm going to tell you one more thing about Latin America. So you better ask questions right now. No, for real. I mean, seriously, imagine the future, right? I mean, this sounded like a Justin Bieber song, but I didn't mean that. I mean, like, seriously imagine what's going to happen next. I mean, which economies are coming forward? Which emerging economies are going to be the economic powers of the future? Latin America has to be in that picture. And the reason is, right now we're seeing the opportunities. Right now we're seeing the investment. Right now we're seeing the companies moving to Latin America, setting out headquarters there. It's no longer Miami. We're talking about Latin America as the headquarters. We're talking about the city of the future. We're talking about, for example, Mexico, a country that is ready for distributed generation. They're building the technological and legislative infrastructure for distributed generation. If we have distributed generation, we have many other things, because we're beginning to build the infrastructure for electric vehicles that you cannot build in many other countries. We're beginning to build the infrastructure for distributed energy storage. We're beginning to build the infrastructure for smart buildings, for smart everything you want to think about. So this is a great opportunity. I'm here to sell you on Latin America, but trust me, I live there. There's a question. I'm so happy. Thank you.
How is the venture capital activity in Latin America, if at all?
It is, well, I could answer that question in many ways. I'll choose the one that is more favorable to me. The venture capital industry is basically a new industry. I mean, there are VC funds that have been in these countries forever. They've been there for 30, 40 years. But really, the resurgence of the venture capital industry in Latin America came in the last 10 years. We're talking about small funds. We're talking about a lot of them risk-adverse funds. They're not investing in the latest technology a lot of the time. But there is a move towards clean technology, impact investment, and right now we see, particularly in Chile, in Mexico, and Brazil, we see a lot of these funds trying to finance energy generation technology. So there are more funds coming. A lot of the funds that we work with in my company in the US, they are beginning to look at Latin America as an opportunity for investing in startup companies. I don't know if that answers the question.
So we're out of time, but I'll say one last thing. Just when you go to Latin America, make sure you stop over in Massachusetts, leave a couple employees behind, and then go down to Latin America, because we work really well together. So,
and
thank you.
In case you want to learn more about Latin America, there is a teaser of a report prepared by Green Momentum. I don't know where we have the copies. The copies are over there. If you want a copy of what's cooking in Latin America, please feel free to bother Rafael over there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Luis. Thank you so much, Jim. It's a great way to kick off our Latin America afternoon and a first for our Cleantech forums. We are now switching into another continuation of the Latin America afternoon, which is a series of overviews of some of the Latin American countries. I invite all of the speakers taking part of that session to come to the stage. Some of the speakers will be speaking in Spanish, and there is a simultaneous translation happening, which I think Luis can tell you more about. Do you want to announce it? Yeah.
Okay, mainly the session will be in English, but for those not Spanish speakers, you have simultaneous translation receivers at the doors, so please take them if you need them.